Hello there. So in this video, we're going to put some ideas together. And I really like this one because it's mostly just drawing graphs and it's some really interesting connections between the models that we've already learned about. So a lot of this stuff is like connecting the puzzle pieces together. Again, it's one of my favorite parts of this class. So we'll get started here. So what this is really doing is going to explore like what happens when the economy changes. Like if we go into a recession or we go into an expansion, how does that affect the Phillips Curve model that we learned about in the previous lessons? So just as a kind of quick review, since we're talking about like the economy changing, the economy can change from aggregate demand or from short run aggregate supply. And so let's quickly review the shifters, right? You've got consumption spending, you've got investment spending, you've got government spending, and you've got net exports, right? Those are those shifters. And then down here, we've got the shifters of SRAS, which you remember I went like this. And I told you that this, like the IRAP, that's really important, right? And we're going to learn that today, why it's important. So we've got inflationary expectations, right? That's an important one. If the inflationary expectations both go up, the workers want a raise. You've got resource costs, or we can call them input costs, if you like that better. You've got regulations, the actions by the government affecting producers, and you've got productivity, right? And productivity is also sometimes technology, right? So you kind of think about what those shifters are. Now, the very first thing we're going to do is draw these pictures up here, and it's going to be a minute of just kind of drawing pictures. So I'm going to show you what to draw first, and then kind of, then I'm going to ask that you basically draw the rest. AD, SRAS, just like that, okay? And so start with that. And then we've got unemployment percent, and then inflation percent. And we have a downward sloping SRPC and a vertical LRPC, right? So this aspect, right, I want you to basically draw that picture, do that here, do that here, do that here. So I'm going to basically pause my video and let you draw your 4 sets of pictures, and then we'll come back. Ow, my hand. I hate like drawing the same thing over and over again. I don't know about you, but like I ended up mixing up stuff. I was like, come on, stop screwing this up, Daniel. You're supposed to be the good teacher. You're supposed to know what you're talking about. All right, so we'll kind of come back to this point of the top half. Now, imagine that you start in long run equilibrium, right? So we're going to say you go from point A here, and we're at point A for all of these is where we're going to start. And then aggregate demand shifts to the left, right? Maybe consumers are like, oh my gosh, I don't want to buy anything right now for whatever reason, right? Maybe the government raises taxes or something. Maybe the government cuts back on its spend. Who cares, right? Think about all the different things that could cause aggregate demand to decrease. Maybe our trade partner had a recession and they stopped buying our stuff. I don't know. So aggregate demand shifts to the left, AD1. Now we go into a recession. Okay, and we have less output than we used to. And our prices fell in the economy. Now we started over here at Nauru, and we were in long run. And this says that the prices fell. So we know that inflation is going to be lower. So we're going to be along the SRPC, and it's sliding along the SRPC. And if we notice, output goes down. When output goes down, people lose their jobs, and that's unemployment. And so our new point, point B, is right there. So notice that that's kind of a mirror spot, right? Notice that we are basically appearing in the mirror of where we were. It's a slide, though. When aggregate demand shifts to the left, we slide to the right on the SRPC. Now, when aggregate demand shifts to the right, we see the opposite thing happen. We go to point B, we see output rise. So output went up, and we'd say prices went up. So maybe the government decided to cut taxes or something and boost aggregate demand for whatever reason, right? And so we'd expect more people to have jobs because output went up, so unemployment's going to decrease. And at the same time, prices are going to go up. So unemployment is going to go from Nauru down, right? We have a decrease in unemployment. And maybe it's helpful here to say like that connection. And we would say for this one, the inflation rates go up. So again, it's that mirror image, but it's a movement along, right, for the short run Phillips curve. So really the trick here is that if you have the aggregate demand changing, it's going to slide you along your current short run Phillips curve. Basically, the underlying relationship between unemployment and inflation rates, like these two variables, they are basically determined by aggregate demand, like the relationship between those. So you just basically, if you have an aggregate demand function, and you plugged in like the unemployment rate, the aggregate demand function could just go, bloop, here's the inflation rate that based on the unemployment rate that you plugged in, because it's just moving you along this SRPC. Now here's where this gets really fun and exciting. So remember the shifters of SRAS are IRAP, like inflationary expectations, resource input costs. This is so cool, I promise you. If you do this, it will help you remember stuff. This gets crazy, right? You ready for this? Imagine if SRAS decreases, right? There's a whole host of reasons why it might. We started at point A, we were at YF. Now we're going to point B, so the amount of output fell. Prices went up. Now the problem is we can no longer model that on the current SRPC. So what it does when the SRAS changes, it actually changes the underlying relationship between unemployment and inflation, and it causes it to move the other way, right? So just like this, it goes wee. So you're going to see this curve shift to the right. I love it. I love it. Love it. And so it shifts out and to the right to point B. Now here's an important observation. Right? Observation. Unemployment goes up and prices go up. But notice that we are not just moving directly up the LRPC. Don't do that. If you did that, put a big X on it and use this spot to draw it correctly. That's why I put that there. Don't go from point A directly up. It has to be a diagonal. Notice that it's moving kind of diagonally. And that's because if we were on the LRPC, we would be at the natural rate of unemployment. We would be at full employment level of output, but we're not. We're in a recession, right? That's what this is a recession. And so this is telling us unemployment is high at point B and prices are higher than they used to be. And that's because the underlying relationship is this, because it's IRAP. Get it? So the curves are your arms. The curves are your, like this arm is your SRAS, and this curve is your SRPC, and they move like this. I know it. It's so cool. I'm not getting anything from you guys right now. You're not saying that that's really cool. Never mind. I'm recording myself. Why would not? There's no one. Anyways, SRAS shifts to the right. I'm just gonna do it again because I love it. It's so cool that it works this way, right? So you go from point A to point B. And you have more people getting jobs because output is higher. And prices, though, are lower. So how would we model that over here? Well, remember, they go like this. Whoop, they move in together. So they go, whoop, move in together. And so if we have these two, and they're starting out here, and they go in, we would expect the SRPC to shift inward. SRPC1. And again, our point B is going to be over here. It's not going to be on the LRPC because we're not at the full employment, remember? So don't just go A down to here. If you're at that full employment level of the LRPC, and like that's where you're producing, you have a dot on the LRPC, that means you're going to have a dot on the LRAS. And they kind of are mirror images of each other. So you already know all the shifters of the short run Phillips curve. That's so cool. You don't have to make a new flashcard for it, like I was telling you the other day, make flashcards for the shifters. Just go back to your short run aggregate supply card and say these are the reverse shifters for the Phillips curve model. Bada bing, bada boom. We're going to do some practice with this. Hopefully it helped you. See you next time.